So in this video, we'll be seeing about how AXI protocol is suitable for memory controllers with high initial access latency. So what the AXI basically does, it decouples the address issuance from the data return and allows multiple outstanding transactions. So the bus does not stop while the memory is preparing data. So yeah, basically what is meant by the high initial access latency. So in case of the very first transaction for the memory controller, there might be multiple operations for the memory controller and the memory to fetch the very first data. So there is an initial latency which is involved, but we'll see how this AXI protocol is actually covering that. So basically the address phase is independent of the data phase. In AXI, the read address channel and the write address channel are completely independent of the data channels. So a memory controller can accept the address immediately even if the data will only be available many cycles later. And the early address acceptance hides the memory latency. So memory controllers, DTD DDRs and LPDDRs typically need many cycles for the row activation, bank selection, column access and turnaround delays. But the AXA allows the controller to handshake the address early and internally start these operations. So whatever the initial latency is hidden by the internal protocol parallelism. So, and also we have the support for multiple outstanding transactions. So the AXI allows a manager to issue multiple read or write addresses without waiting for the previous data to return using the IDs. So while one memory access is waiting for the DRAM timing, the other addresses can already be queued and processed. So by having multiple outstanding transactions, we can have the other transactions in the queue while the first one is in the memory trying to access the required data. So the out of order completion is supported. So AXI permits read data and responses to return out of order as long as the transaction ID is preserved. So the memory controller can return the data as soon as it becomes ready without being forced into strict ordering. So even though an earlier transaction hasn't yet completed, the transactions which comes later and gets completed can be returned once its execution is complete. So separate read and write channels prevents the blocking. Read and write transactions use separate independent channels. A long latency read does not block the write traffic and vice versa. And also the burst transfer maximizes the efficiency after latency. So once the initial latency is paid, AXA burst transfers allows continuous data beats on consecutive cycles. So the memory bandwidth is maximized after the very first data beat, which is critical for the DRAM efficiency. So and the flow control matches memory readiness. Whatever the valid ready handshake allows the memory controller to accept the data addresses when ready and the delay data until it is actually available. There is no fixed timing assumptions imposed on the memory controller. So basically the AXI is suitable for high latency memory controller because it allows early address acceptance, multiple outstanding transactions and out of data address return, which hides the memory latency and keeps the bus utilized. You just try to draw this here. So let's say there's this master which is kind of giving it to the DDR controller, let us say. Which in turn is connected to the DDR. So the very first transaction where suppose we will be trying to do a write or read. So there will be a lot of operations within the DDR controller, the DDR for the initial latency. So initial access. So that will have a lot of latency, but due to the support of multiple outstanding transactions and having independent channels, out of order transaction completion, we're able to somewhat hide the initial access as latency through the AXI protocol.